tell history, but I think we can in this game. And I think everybody ought to feel very proud of that fact. And as I take man's last step from the surface, back home for some time to come, but we believe not too long into the future, I'd like to just let what I believe history will record, that America's challenge of today has forged man's destiny of tomorrow. And as we leave the moon in Taurus literal, we leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all mankind. Godspeed the crew of Apollo 17.
This is Apollo Control at 102 hours into the flight of Apollo 11. It's grown quite quiet here in Mission Control. A few moments ago, Flight Director Gene Kranz requested that everyone sit down, get prepared for events that are coming. And he closed with the remark, "Good luck to all of you." Minutes now until ignition for powered descent. Everything's still looking very good at this point.
Okay, all flight controllers, go for powered descent. Retro, go. Fido, go. Guidance, go. Control, go. Telcom, go. Jinsei, go. Ecom, go. Surgeon, go. Capcom, word go for powered descent.
We're off to a good start. Play it cool.
Okay, all flight controllers, I'm going around the horn. Okay, retro, go. Fido, go. Guidance, go. Control, go. Telcom, go. Jinsei, go. Econ. Go. Surgeon. Go. Retro. Go. Fido. Go. Guidance. Go. Control. Go. Falcon. Go. GNC. Go. Econ. Go. Surgeon. Go. Capcom, we're go for landing. Okay, everybody, let's hang tight and look for landing radar.
75 feet, down a half. 1202 alarm. 60 seconds. We're going that flag.
We're going that alarm.
40 feet, down 2.5. If it doesn't reoccur, will we go? 30 seconds. 1201. 1201. Roger, 1201 alarm.
1201 alarm.
Same time, we'll go, Mike.
Okay, we're go. We've had shutdown.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Okay, keep the chatter down in this room. T1, stand by T1. Stay no stay all flight controllers. Retro, stay. Fido, stay. Guidance, stay. Control, stay. Falcon, stay. GNC, stay. Econ, stay. Surgeon, stay. Retro, go. Fido, go. Guidance, go. Control, go. Falcon, go. GNC, go. Econ, go. Surgeon, go. Retro, go. Fido, go.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Oh, that was very friendly. Thank you very much for coming out. We are honored. We're humbled that you guys would come and listen to a bunch of idiots talk about this. So without any further ado, we'll jump right into it. Today we're going to talk about XCOM 2, Leading the Resistance. And we're going to talk about basically how it came about. We're going to talk about some of the more behind-the-scenes stuff about how we developed it. And then, of course, we're going to show you guys a little some new content that we haven't shown anybody, some new things, I guess, that we haven't shown anybody. So to go around the room, little children, my name is these little children. My name is Jake Solomon. I'm the creative director.
I'm Greg Furch. I'm the art director.
I'm Garth DeAngelis. I'm the lead producer.
And I'm Ryan McFall. I'm the lead engineer.
Right. So to start with, I guess thinking about where XCOM 2 came from, you know, obviously we had this incredible opportunity because of Enemy Unknown, but I guess talking, you know, when you're developing something that's the first game, you don't really think beyond that. So I think when we were working on Enemy Unknown, and Enemy Unknown we worked on for a really long time, right, Greg?
Oh, yeah.
Long time.
Long time.
Only felt like a century or two. But you know, it went really well, and then because of that, after Enemy Unknown finished, we had this opportunity to say, okay, what is it we're doing next? And you know, we knew we wanted to make more XCOM, but the question was, what do you do? What direction do you go? And so we kind of had a lot of things that we thought about. We could have done a linear sequel, you know, where you started with plasma weapons, and you know, I don't want to say anything because then it's going to sound, you know, then some people can be like, yeah, you should have done that. So they were all terrible ideas except for the one that we did. Go underwater or whatever, you know. But why would you do that? So someday, no. And so what, you know, it's funny, we played with all these ideas. I think the core of XCOM, it's a game about struggle. You know, it's a game about humanity that is, you know, a humanity that you can recognize facing these really long odds and facing enemies that are much superior to you and seeing the things they have and then coveting them and trying to get them for yourself. And so then we started to think, well, what is the setting for that? And you know, loss is a really big part of XCOM. You know, you lose soldiers, you can lose missions, you can lose games. And so we kind of took the idea of loss and we ran with it. And I don't remember the first time we talked about that.
I do.
Yeah,
I do. I remember.
They were very exciting conversations to me. Like I remember when that seed was first planted, because you talked about loss so much as one of the key thematic pillars of XCOM. And when we first said, and there was actually stories with some of the key developers. One of our old lead engineers, Casey O'Toole, he actually lost the game one of the first times he played after we hit beta. The game was fully playable. I remember he called us in his office with his head down in shame, with the councilman on the screen, being mind controlled, and he was like, "I lost. I legit lost." And one of the person that actually architected the game lost the game. It was a key thing that thematically was very cool for reasons that Jake said as a setting, and also mechanically it happened. It happened to some of the best players. So we said, what if XCOM 2 started with you in a position of loss? And then that led to all these conversations about what could be really cool mechanically. And I remember at first there was some hesitation because we're like, we can't tell the player they lost. We can't.
Right. But we just did.
We did.
No. No, I mean, there was, legitimately, there was a lot of hesitation. But, obviously, when people put a lot of time, probably a lot of people in this room put a lot of time into the game, and they struggle. And then the thing about XCOM that I think is neat is that when you win XCOM, it feels very authentic because you know that loss is just as possible an outcome. So when you win a game like XCOM, it feels very authentic. It's a great memory. And so now what I say is, and I believe this, is that in the universes, every time you start a new game of XCOM, it's an alternate universe. And so in the universes where players won, all the games that we won, XCOM 2 never happened. And so the idea behind XCOM 2 is the games that we lost, we get to go back and we get to save the worlds that we sort of left behind. And so that's kind of the idea, and maybe that's how we
That
made
is a
ourselves.
genius recovery.
Yeah. That's marketing. Yes, but I mean, the idea is that for us, the idea about XCOM 2 is that you are starting a resistance movement where XCOM lost, the world belongs to the aliens, and now, as a player, you're fighting to take the world back. And I think that was a really exciting setting for us, is because you can stay generally conventional weapons at the start of the game, and you can face an enemy that is even more overwhelming than an enemy unknown, where it's their world, and they rule this entire world. And so what that meant is that we started to think about what are the pillars of XCOM, because no matter what the setting is, at Firaxis, obviously, our games are built on mechanics. We don't come up with a story and say, hey, now let's make a game to fit that. Instead, we say, all right, whatever the story is, it has to fit the core mechanics of what the experience is. And in XCOM, those pillars are pretty clear. Obviously, you have the idea of tactical and strategy. So you have this tense tactical combat where the stakes are high. And then you have a strategic game that allows the player to sort of expand and grow their forces. And then we always think about, we sort of added a new design pillar after Enemy Unknown. One thing we wanted to expand on was the idea of replayability. And so, we wanted to have an experience that players would have the same XCOM experience that they had from Enemy Unknown, but be able to jump back into the game and have brand new experiences. That was a big, big push for us.
One of the things that was really important to Jake creatively, I remember back early on Enemy Unknown, and we talked about this before, obviously we had these awesome handcrafted maps on Enemy Unknown, and one of the things we really wanted to do was procedural maps. So that was one of your core pillars, and that was something that Greg, the art team, the level designers, our first feature that we knew we had to crack that code early in development. These are some early screens.
Yeah, so these are the first things that we did. As you can see, we're trying to develop what this world looks like 20 years in the future. And along with that, you can see the cover placement. Even the concept artists were jumping in, understanding how things had to work, what were the mechanics of the game, and then how do we kind of craft this world around it. And so there are some open places, and you can see some cover scattered around, and the way that we were trying to do it in a way that made sense and also worked with the gameplay. And then, even to the point where we're looking at how high can you get on a building, and what were those structures going to be, and how were these things going to procedurally generate. And the first time that we did it, I remember once we got it actually working, the very core, the very simplest version of it, I was at home playing and just kind of loading it up, and I got lost. And I was like, okay, this works. Like I made the level and I didn't know where I was. And so at that point, I was like, this is gonna work.
It's funny though, because that led to a good point. The team has such inherited knowledge and experience from Enemy Unknown and the handcrafted portion of maps, and we have these conventions with cover size and building height that we were able to parlay to XCOM 2, but also making sure with the system that they developed, which completely changed the pipeline, that it did not lead to this completely random feel where you felt lost all the time and you didn't know where you were going. You still needed some thought and design behind these levels, even though they're procedural, they're not completely random. And we found that there's a clear fun factor differentiator between the two.
And these aren't like concepts you'd normally see, a developer show you. Like these are really unfinished. These are nuts and bolts. This is the concept guy trying to understand.
Greg's protecting his art here.
Of course.
He's like,
of course.
no.
But then we go to the next slide. This is the culmination of, okay, this is where we got all the stuff that this is what we think cities are starting to look like and the vibe for them going forward and what we're going to push. And this kind of very clean, very immaculate. And then it got so sterile that we started to bring back some foliage, but bring it back in some really unnatural ways. And again, this was one of the first images that we showed when we were teasing the game. And I'm not sure who the super sleuth was that figured out that those were XCOM soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
And,
this was an image on the Advent website, so the teaser website.
And
that's
the posters are actually from EU and EW. In fact, the white one is actually one that we actually did when we were doing our GI covers, Game Informer covers a long time ago. And then the other one is, I think, an ethereal from something or other, some poster. But
so
somebody figured it out.
Yeah, this was in the Advent, whatever that website was, and then people saw the screenshot and then drilled in, and then they're like, hey, that poster was in one level of Enemy Unknown, and
I remember seeing that on Reddit. I'm like,
yeah,
guess it is.
And that goes, I think Gabe Newell said, and he said, like, the internet is scary smart. And I think that's very true. Like, you cannot tell a lie. You cannot try to pull anything over on the internet because it is very, very smart.
So this is sort of the alien, these are the city centers that the aliens have built at the heart of some of the urban areas of the game. This is something very different, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so these are, and this is exciting from a gameplay standpoint. This is our small town set, and right from the beginning, again, it goes back to this idea is that XCOM 2 is in the future, but for us, future is not far out future because the player has to have this connection. They have to feel a connection to the world that they're fighting for. So if it was too far out in the future, then I think it gets very cold. And you can't really form that emotional connection. And what I mean by that is that XCOM, even in the very original XCOM and Enemy Unknown, you had this sense of, okay, you recognize this gas station, even though it's made up, you recognize it as a place that you could legitimately see out of your window. And so with the small towns, we had to balance the really cold city centers with something like this, and there is nothing more. And that's an actual asset. Now, this is concept, but that playground is in the game. So there's nothing more XCOM than like watching your soldiers die on a slide, Tell my kids.
But you can see also, again, the concept artists are still on like the system. They're thinking about how these things are going to be working together and how they're going to be created and how they're going to procedurally generate. And so while we're exploring both the look and feel, we're really trying to stay very true to what are the mechanics so we didn't build something that we couldn't actually make.
And it is fun to fight in houses, which is something we didn't have in Enemy Unknown. So it's just something that it does feel very XCOM-like where you're trading shots in these small houses, and it's a very cool thing.
And then it takes us to the wilderness levels too. So we were, again, looking at this image, you can see it's really the same exact shot with almost the same geo. Actually the same geo, and then we just are basically how would these things translate from a temperate environment to an arid environment to a tundra environment, and that's where we landed.
Yeah, and the cool thing is in the previous screen, the small town, we have the tech that actually you can have small towns that are in a temperate environment, small towns that are in a desert environment, small towns that are in a tundra environment. And so that is, when we talk about procedural levels, there's all of that. Also the biome of like the small town can change, which makes for a lot of variety.
This is procedural on top of procedural. The cover in this shot is exactly the same, but the cover will actually change as well when you go from map to map.
There's a large amount of tech that went into making this possible. So
our lead engineer.
He made all of this happen. We're talking, but he made all of it work with the artists.
We have real-time lighting this time around in XCOM EU. We had baked lighting, and so now we have real-time with light scattering and all sorts of nice effects that kind of make it look as close to the baked lighting as possible that we all know and love.
And the lighting is the key. I mean, if we couldn't change lighting and we couldn't do these different color keys, we just wouldn't have the same power that we have now. And so with switching over to real-time lighting, it's made an enormous difference in our ability to actually pull this off.
And now when you go into a mission in the nighttime and the daytime, it can match.
Yeah, that's true. There's you'd go into the clock. We did this trick on Enemy Unknown where it was basically like, didn't I fast forward time or something? Didn't I like cheat?
You had XCOM time.
Yeah, where it was like, it's going to be a nighttime map, so suddenly the player just loses 6 hours. But now, everything matches, so you go into maps, it'll be time of day, weather. I mean, we don't have actual weather patterns in the game. Do we?
We do.
Okay, we do actually have weather patterns. So, sure, why not? Who's going to know? So when we talk about the design pillars, obviously we wanted to build on both the tactical game and the strategy game. And the fun thing about a sequel is that when you get all the feedback from the audience, the people who've played the game, which makes a really big difference. So thank you very much. You guys are pretty integral into the shape that XCOM 2 took. And so what we can do is look at the things that people liked and look at the areas we can improve. And so with tactical, we were able to add a lot of things to combat missions. And so obviously one of the big ones is concealment. And here we have a game shot of aliens. I'm just going to blame aliens. Here we have what we have here is a shot of a soldier concealed, and this is exactly how it looks in game. And so your soldiers, and this fits with the resistance idea more, but you're allowed to get you're allowed to get the jump on the aliens, and it adds this sort of extra tension to combat. The other things, I think one of the other big things we've had a lot, but one of the big things we added was the mission objectives. So now, in Enemy Unknown, it was always go in there and kill a bunch of aliens, which is fun. But now we have a lot of other things for the player to do. Sometimes you have to hack a workstation. Sometimes you have to rescue somebody. Sometimes you have to go in there and destroy something. And at the same time, you are also always still killing a bunch of aliens.
We also really improved Overwatch.
Yep. So. So this is something internally we call Overwatch 2.0, and it's made possible by a lot of the tech enhancements that we've done in XCOM 2. So in XCOM 2, the game core can run independently of what's happening visually, and so as a result, so when you confirm the attack, the game knows what's going to happen for the next 20 seconds or so, and so we can choreograph these cinematic moments. And so what you saw in the E3 demo isn't movie magic, it's actually something you'll see as you're playing a game.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, it's really cool. You get the camera swings and time slows down, and you'll swing to multiple soldiers all taking their shots. It's this really cool choreographed thing. And, the soldiers don't waste their shots anymore, right?
Yep.
They all...
Yes, sequential.
Or, modders, if you want to add that in, you can do that.
Right, you can make it go back to the original, more terrible Overwatch.
Yes.
So Ryan was saying, they're very smart. He can see the future with the system that they have. But this is one of those game dev moments as well. It happens throughout the game where you have these spikes of like the first time you see something like this in the game. You're like, okay, this is a legit sequel feature. The work that engineering did and the way that the cameras move and the art behind it, to see that all come together, it was probably one of my top 5 wow moments seeing it in game.
But it actually came out of the E3.
Yeah.
So we didn't have this until the E3.
Ryan was gonna do.
Right.
But yes, the E3 demo helped accelerate some
Right.
things.
There was a little bit of movie magic, and then Ryan was like, we can actually do that. It was like, oh, well, we should, you know. Make it not bullshit, I guess. That's a good idea.
Yep. So yeah, we use previs a lot at Firaxis to kind of show what we want it to be like, and so then the engineers kind of sweep in behind and make it actually do that.
Yeah, when I make those, I don't necessarily expect it to actually happen, but I hope. And so yeah, we made it, and eventually Ryan actually got that working later on. It was pretty cool.
This is another, there are so many additions to tactical combat and loot and all the different enemies and all the different objectives, but this is another addition to tactical combat, and so this is the hacking system, and we may be one of the first developers ever to add hacking to a game without adding a mini game. So I don't know, maybe you like the hacking mini games. I don't know, that's a positive, negative, I don't know. But the idea here is that you have a class of soldier that can really take advantage of this, and so there are different things you can hack throughout the level. You can hack enemies to take control of them. When you're completing objectives, a lot of times you're performing these hacks, and then you can win certain things that can change combat, or you can have negative feedback that can actually make combat a little more tough. So you're always weighing that, but it's another fun feature to combat. Right, and the other pillar, of course, to XCOM is the strategy game. And I think that this was a thing really based on once people are playing the game, when we were making Enemy Unknown, you just don't know. You don't know, is there an audience there? And if there is an audience, what should the experience be? And I think that my gut reaction as a designer was to hold on really tightly to the reins and say, I want the experience to work like this and have a particular curve like this. And I think that was successful, but I think what we saw was that really kind of fought the replayability, where people would say, well, there's a right thing to do in XCOM, Enemy Unknown. And I think we all thought, okay, how do we make it to where strategy is more open-ended, where it's a little more unpredictable, which is what we talk about, and we sort of let go of the reins on the design side and said, all right, let's make the game a lot more unpredictable. Let's give the player a lot more replayability, and let's sort of let off the reins and let them have the experiences they want. And that sort of manifests itself in different things. There are lots of new random attributes you can add to weapons that you make. A lot of things that happen throughout the world are unpredictable. One of them is that the aliens, now it's not just the player fighting to win the game on their own terms. Now the aliens can win the game. So they have a win condition, the player has a win condition, and then there are all these little short-term things that both players are trying to do. So the AI, or the aliens, or the AI, I guess the AI aliens, whatever, same thing. They have their short-term goals that you can find out about, and they may want to do any one of these things. And so here we have, they can hunt down XCOM, they can make Advent troopers much tougher. Some of their things that they want to do are secret. And so the player has to choose, okay, do I head off this dark event, as we call them? Because if I don't, the aliens are going to get stronger, but at the same time, I need to focus on advancing my weapons, building up the Avenger. So there's definitely a more unpredictable strategy game where things happen, and you have this network of territories you're trying to expand to, and it just creates this much more unpredictable experience on the strategy there, which I think we're definitely happy with. Ooh, yes. Hey, modding. Yeah, we're very, very excited for modding. We want to, again, the audience, I think Firaxis is the kind of company where we only exist because of the loyalty of our audience, and we take that very, very, very seriously. We don't consider that like, oh, we just make these games, we put them out there, somebody out there buys them. For us, it's very much a back and forth between us and our audience. Certainly, Civ's the same way, XCOM, and so obviously what we needed to do to improve that on XCOM 2 was to put the game in our audience's hands and give them all the tools that we have to help us make XCOM 2 better. So Ryan can talk about the modding.
So one of our main goals for XCOM 2 modding was to take the minimum barrier for entrance from super genius down to normal person, So we kind of watched in morbid fascination the Long War crew kind of hacking our game apart. I'm glad they were making mods and not hacking our credit cards.
Oh yeah, those people are robots, man. I do not know how they were able to do what they did. It's pretty impressive.
I know how, and it's kind of scary. So, but you're not going to have to do that for XCOM 2. For XCOM 2, we're providing a toolkit through Steam that anyone who buys the game will be able to get. It works kind of like the mod tools for Civilization. So you have a Visual Studio isolated shelf kind of glue app that can help. They can build the mods, build mod projects, and we're also shipping out our Unreal editor that we use to build the game. And on top of that, we're also giving out the source code, the script source code, not the native source code, and 50 gigabytes of assets that went into making the game.
Right. Yeah, the key for us is that you guys, when XCOM 2 comes out, you guys have the same game that we had when we're developing it. You have the same tools that we have. You use the editor that we use. You have all the assets that the incredible content team created, because we want you guys to help us basically make XCOM 2 better. And so very quickly, I think the first things we'll see will be levels, like little level parcels, as we call them, which is what you build our actual levels out of. But you'll have all the assets, and it's as Ryan said, it's a huge amount of assets that you can have and then start to put things together.
Yeah,
so.
it's a lot of napkin holders, trash cans.
A lot of trash cans.
Just all of the parts that go into the levels, people will be able to kit bash new levels pretty quickly.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, one of the things we wanted to do with 2, when we were looking at it, when we were getting started, I mean, we were really, before I go any further, you know, XCOM, I am super proud of that and super proud of what the team did visually on it. But as we looked at it moving forward, with the engine we had and the baked lighting, and we really wanted to enhance it. I mean, XCOM was built. It was a game that was kind of inspired by miniatures, and we really wanted to take that and change it and kind of evolve it, like the sector with teeth. But now we've got, you know, action figures with kung fu grip, right? So we've kind of enhanced it and really wanted to make it a more immersive than EU was, in that, you know, everything felt right. I mean, before we had to like fake textures and try to get it to look right. Now with the rendering tech the way it is, you know, it's a much closer visual. And so again, you can see the 2 next to each other. The fidelity difference is quite a bit different. This is a pod reveal from EU of Mutons. And again, moving to the new Muton, I think you can tell there's a fairly big difference in the materials. I mean, the soldier there, his fabric looks like fabric, and the metal looks like metal, and the carbon fiber of the Muton looks
Yeah, the
right.
Muton looks icky.
Yeah, you know, like we
Skin
wanted that
looks
kind
gross.
of wet, kind of moist skin. And the tech that Ryan and his team put in really allowed us to do that. And the artists, I mean, this is the same team who made EU, honestly, our team. And it is, you know, just the tech advancements that we've had, and the fidelity enhancements, they've just run with it, and every day they make something cooler.
And that's the thing, is when you're playing the game, like these screenshots are straight out of the game.
Yeah.
You know, Greg just capped these straight out of the game. And some of those EU shots are beauty shots, and these are like capped out of the game. So when you're playing XCOM 2, like you will, you know, you'll look at your soldier and you will be able to see the different materials and say, oh, that's leather and that's plastic and that's metal. It really is a very striking difference.
With EU, I actually had to go through and actually look at the screenshots we released, and, you know, make sure the levels were right, make sure that it was good. I mean, literally, these shots from X2 that I'm showing, all of the ones that have been in this are literally print screen. Like, I have not touched anything. Yeah. This is exactly how the game looks on my desktop. So. But again, you know, the job the team has done, and just increasing the fidelity and that immersion. When you drop into a glam cam, yeah, Bruce Willis. Found that on the internet, actually. But again, the character creator, you want to be able to feel your characters and see them and really identify with them. And again, the fidelity difference here is enormous. I mean, we're still staying true to EU, and things are a little bit chunky and a little bit oversized. We're not trying to do real, right? That's not necessarily our goal. But we want that immersion point to be a little better. And then you get up close.
Right. That's the key of character customization. It's not fair if we have all the fun, and so we just want to make sure and share that with you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, good. This is the exciting part too. It's all exciting, but this part we get to share never before seen stuff with you guys. We get to show enemies that we have never announced or shown before, and so we're pretty excited for this here. This is exclusive to Firaxicon. So here we have a new Advent unit. That big bulky fella there is the Shield Bearer. That's an Advent support unit, and so first, before we talk about it, we'll just show what they can do. Awesome. That was like a Final Fantasy move. Yeah. And what's really cool about the Shield Bearer is that we have a lot of offensive enemies, but the Shield Bearer is a support unit for the aliens and for Advent. And so that move that the Shield Bearer does, it basically creates an energy shield around every other ally that's near the Shield Bearer. And so whenever you see a Shield Bearer, you're always like, you got to take them out first, because if they get the shield up, now every enemy is protected by an extra layer of energy shield. And so then you really have to take out the Shield Bearer, and they have a lot of hit points. They're hard to take out. So once they get the shield up, they're really tricky.
Yep. Super bruising. I mean, when we were creating this character, we really wanted to push the size of it and scale of him and really make him a little bulkier, so like he reads completely different than the other Advent soldiers on the field.
Yeah, and so the next one is one of our favorites. That's the Archon. He obviously is inspired by the Floater, but completely different. He's beautiful, where the Floater was a very ugly duckling. So, but again, we'll show what the Archon can do. Blow stuff up. So yeah, the Archon is the evolution of the Floater, a flying unit who has a lot of tricks. They still have like that Floater rage inside of them, so when they take damage, they can go into a battle frenzy, which allows them to get an extra action, move really far. They can strike you melee with that staff, which is really deadly. They can shoot it. And then, of course, their signature move is called Blazing Pinions, where they fly up above the battlefield and then they launch all these explosive shells and attack all your units. So they are a very, very, very powerful unit, and they're beautiful too.
Yeah, I mean, we were really trying to go with sort of some Egyptian influences and some almost like a deity. Like we wanted him to feel godlike, and even when he does that move, it is a very graceful, rage-filled contrast.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome to see him in action.
Okay, so XCOM 2 coming out worldwide on February 5th. And thank you all very much for coming to Firaxicon, for coming to our panel, and we're going to have a lot of time to hang out with you guys and talk throughout the day. So thank you very much. Yep.